Hi everyone. We've been thinking a lot about how we can build community when we are so isolated from each other. It's been so long since we've been in the same building with each other and we got to see each other face to face. So in thinking about that, we've started with this video, not a sermon, but this video to start a conversation. A video that will encourage you to go pick up your phone, to pick up your computer, or just to grab a pen and write a letter. We want you to start a conversation with the people you're thinking about and the people you miss so much. So please, as you listen to this video, think about the things that are hitting you, the things that are meaningful to you, and go talk about that with other people. A few days ago, Hannah and I went out to grab some food essentials. We had been to a couple of stores, and instead of actually stocking up, we had just been left marveling at all the empty aisles. Where there was supposed to be pasta and beans and toilet paper, there was just empty shelves. And it was wild. We had such a interesting experience just wandering the aisles and marveling at how empty they were. Finally, we got to our local grocery outlet. We had been to a few by then. And as we wandered the store, we got to the back where there was this meat department. And on the cooler where all the meat was supposed to be, there was this note that said, "Stop panic buying. There is no food shortage." Now, I want to be clear here. I'm not saying we shouldn't prepare for the weeks ahead. They're going to bring interesting things that we absolutely should be preparing for. Instead, I want to point out this mindset of scarcity that is coming into our community and creating an interesting dynamic. See, we live in this world of obvious scarcity. You can go to all the stores in Anaheim and still not find toilet paper. And even if you make it to a store that somehow got a shipment in that day, you can only take a few rolls home of that prized toilet paper. When we begin to take that idea of scarcity and bring it into our community, we're talking about a shift away from the abundance of God towards a community that thinks about the best things as scarce. James 4:2-3 reads, "You want something and do not have it, so you commit murder. And you covet something and cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly, in order to spend what you get on your pleasures." James has entered into a string of imperatives that will spur his readership onto building community. But there is an attitude that is doing the exact opposite. You see, from the beginning, James has been talking about building community. He talks about how the people of the church were favoring the rich and ignoring the poor. The whole book has been about this perspective that is ripping apart the community and the adjustment it would take to build a community. The whole book has been a shift in perspective. The world would tell us to befriend the rich, to stockpile toilet paper, or harbor food we don't need. The pull of the situation around us is into the fear of scarcity. The fear of not having enough, of being vulnerable of the things to come. But James is pulling at the lie that we are telling ourselves and asking his audience to reconsider the consequences of living life with scarcity as the center. James's reminder is vivid against our own yearning to avoid vulnerability. To avoid the vulnerability of being in community, because in a community we might be asked to give. We might be asked to be in a relationship that might hurt us. Or we might be asked to not be in charge. But in the words of James 4:6, God gives more grace. The most precious commodity in the history of the world is in abundance. James is inviting his audience into reality where God gives more grace, where there is plenty to live around, where we are invited to live in a community and be clothed in the greatest commodity that the history has ever seen. We already have authority in Christ. It was freely given. James is calling us to shift our perspective to understand that there is enough that is already being given. This new perspective excludes greed, excludes jealousy, and invites us into a community. This new perspective includes patient endurance. James 5:11 reads, "Indeed, we call blessed those who showed endurance. You have heard the endurance of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful." This is what our new perspective brings. It brings our patient endurance, our willingness to wait on the steadfastness of the Lord. It says, God can handle this. God is going to keep giving more grace. So the question now is, what do we do with this? We live in community. Even as we become more isolated, we make the choices that bring us together. We risk the ellipses. We wait as people respond to the text we sent. We risk initiating the video call. We risk missing the next Marvel marathon as we put down the devices and commune with God and each other. We risk not hearing back as we write that letter. We choose to radically build community during this unprecedented time of isolation. So let us shift our perspective from scarcity to abundance as we say to each other, God gives more grace. And above all, listen to James 4:8, where he says, cleanse your hands.